Guys, that was the desktop version. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is do the tablet version. We are essentially going to rearrange the flow of the website. We're going to left align all of the sticky content for tablet, and we're going to take all of the text content and move it to the right. So let's dive in. So to take a look at what we are going to build. So this is the first iteration of our website. And let's take a look at the tablet version. So exactly what we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to move all the sticky elements over to the left, and we are going to move all of our text elements to the right here. Okay, so let's dive in. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we are going to jump to our tablet breakpoint. Now have no fear, a lot of things will go out of whack. That is totally fine. Okay, what we're going to go ahead and do here is we are going to start to minimize and just change some things. So first off, I'm going to select this container that is holding all of our text elements here. Reason being is because, as you can see, some of the boxes have changed. For example, this width changed from is basically 28.3%, which has made it super small. So what we need to do is actually set this to, let's make sure we are in the correct container. This is the largest most container, the biggest group. So I want to set this to max content, because I want it to take shape around all the content that is within it. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this to a particular size. So I'm going to go over back to our V1, our V1 website, and we're going to go over to our first tablet version, or rather it's another desktop version. So we've actually made an additional breakpoint here. So what we're going to do, but we still have moved everything to the left side. So what we're going to do first is we are going to measure this. So we've set a minimum width to 500. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to take this minimum width 500. Perfect. And we are going to set this puppy to the left side here. Now our content over here, we're going to basically, I want to make sure that this is centered as well. I'm going to make sure that our logo is centered over here too. There we go. So we are going to make sure, we're going to take this entire section. We are going to we're going to scale this down a little bit, center it. We're going to move this entire section over to the left here. We're going to stack our buttons. So I'm going to select our container just like this. Instead of a 2x1, I'm going to do a 1x2 so they stack. And I am going to set the FR, the fraction. We're going to set this over to max content. There we go. And the width, I'm going to reduce, I'm going to take out the minimum width. There we go. And last thing, the height of these containers. Again, we're also going to set this to max content so that the grid cells flex to the size of our buttons. And I'm going to remove our vertical or horizontal gap, and I'm going to give us a vertical gap, just like this. And on top of this, we also need to move our Mario. So I'm going to grab my Mario container, and I am going to pull him over to the left. I'm going to align him to the center of this content, just like this. And I can go ahead and use my eyeballs too to get him in the center of these. Okay. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to dock him to this container, I'm going to dock to the bottom. Okay. In the margin, I'm going to go ahead and just set this to 0. Oops. Let's do this. I'm just going to use my arrow keys here. Eyeball him. And just to cross-reference, I want to make sure. Okay, so in this next breakpoint, what I have done here is I've actually duplicated a Mario. What I've done is I have taken, let's go to my layer so we can see this. I've made a Mario logo plus a text container. So this container holds not only the buttons, our image, but I believe it also holds Mario. Here we go. So it's a container, holds Mario, and it holds our previous logos. So what I am going to do is I am actually going to duplicate all of this stuff. So let me set this to none. Here we go. I'm going to take all this content, our container, plus our major container here. I want to place this in a container. We're going to have it be a 1x1, and I am going to set the height to be 100%. There we go. And of course, what I'm going to do is also set this to be sticky. Everything else I can kind of I believe I can leave as default. So let's see here. We have our background, boom. Okay, great. So we have our content sticky to the left. Now all we need to do is we need to take all this content that is super large and in charge. We are just going to go ahead and make it so that everything is to the left and is sized appropriately. So let's go ahead and grab our containers here. First off, we need to make sure all of them are set to max content. Boom. We have our image. Let's make sure max content. Perfect. Now I want to set all these to be right aligned. Let's go ahead and take that out of get that out of the way. Right aligned. Okay. Okay, next we are going to do some text size changes. First off, let's go ahead and see these sizes here. We have 80%, 80%, 80%. And actually, I'm just going to jump to our tablet version here. So we're going to make these very quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and make a fourth breakpoint just to make our lives easier. So what we're going to go ahead and do is I'm going to click these three dots, add a breakpoint, and I'm going to set this to basically be in between these two, the tablet and the desktop. And we are going to use 1633. So it will go from 1001 to 1697. Okay. So let's go ahead and go to 1697. Let's go ahead and hit done. There we go. So we are now creating a secondary desktop breakpoint. So let's go to that. So we have this content here. We are going to push all this stuff to the right. Oops. Let's make sure that this is in. There we go. Right align. Right align. Let's right align. Perfect. 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 Okay, let's go ahead and get this container set to max content, the one that is holding both our Mario and our logo and our buttons. Let's go ahead and take Mario in his container to make sure that this is centered. There we are. Let's do a quick preview. Again, the preview is not 100% true. Okay, we're gonna have to, so all of this stuff is set to sticky, but we need to actually set the container to be sticky. So boom, position sticky, and everything inside of this we can actually set to default. And reason why is because now that we've made a new container, and reason why we're making a new container is because it makes everything a lot easier to move as a group now that we're dealing with a new breakpoint. We've moved everything, we've grouped everything. Now this stuff is sticky. Now do not worry that Mario is here, okay? Because it's all about the published website, and we'll jump to that in just a second. I'm just double checking to make sure that everything is over here. Next thing we have to do is move our pipe and change the size of the content and the margin for this. So let's start getting our margins correct. So let's go back to our V1 of this website and let's just check to see what our margins are looking like for our content on the right. So minimum width 466. Our margin from the right is, because we're using actual containers, 5.7. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to do a 5.7, and we're going to try to do this a little bit different than we had done V1. Okay. We're going to try to see if we can do it without that margin, or excuse me, without an additional container. Okay. We're going to take this 5.7 from the right. Boom. Okay. And we'll leave this one as is. And we're going to check one more thing. Go 80%, 466. Let's double check that. And width 466. PX, copy, hit enter. Okay, let's set all of our containers to that size. And I want to double check. So max content, instead of this, a percentage, we want to set this to max content. Again, why we're using max content is so that this container, regardless of what else is going on, we're saying, hey, container, you have things inside you. Please just take the width of that stuff. We want to just keep those boxes nice, confined, and efficient. Minimum width 466 pixels. All right, and next we have our pipe to bring over to the left. And I am just going to left align this, and let me see. again, I can hand do this, right? I can basically just say, okay, well, I'm gonna use my arrow keys to kind of just find the best spot for Mario. Now, for this though, we have this dock to the left. We could just see, hey guys, just do this 5.3 instead of just struggling to do this. Just do 5.3%, or just manually go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to figure out what is the best spot for you to have your pipe. So here, Mario should go into the pipe. We need to fix this in our layers now. Because we made this new container with the logo, Mario, and all this stuff, it is now on top of the pipe. So we need to go back, take our pipe, put it back on top. And we also probably need to make sure that is the same in our desktop over here. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and publish. Let's take a look at the real changes here. All right, so we have some issues here, and this is because we changed a few things. Because we changed some things in this desktop, we changed some things on this desktop, but it's fine. It's going to be super easy to fix. We're just going to click this container. We're going to center a line. And this is why I said we're going to do things different, but what I did to keep things super separate is I actually made two elements, right? So I had, for example, on this desktop, I had a totally different set of elements used for this desktop breakpoint versus this one. Okay, I'm not sure if that makes sense, but basically this was unique to this breakpoint, where on desktop I basically had this on don't display, and I had a whole nother unique set of assets purely for this desktop breakpoint, which you can do, but we're gonna see if we can do this a little bit differently here. So I'm gonna set this to max content. I'm gonna set this to centered here on this breakpoint, and I am going to double check what we can do. So now this should be okay, left and right. Let's go to our layers. Okay, the pipe is still on top. Let's go ahead and publish this again. I'm gonna go back here and I'm going to refresh. All right, next thing I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to set this large container to a height of 100%. Remove this minimum height. Reason being is because the minimum height is stopping at 627 pixels. So we're gonna clear this out, none. Minimum width, we don't need this. We can also set that to none, publish. And at this point, guys, it's pretty much, I've made the site already, but we're gonna have to make sure to troubleshoot all of this to make sure it is working. Next thing, okay, so this is sticky, great, but we need, all the content within it is sticky, right? So this is sticky, we're gonna set this to default. We're gonna set Mario and his container to default, because now we have a full container here that we can set to sticky. There we go. And I'm going to dock this to the top rather than the right here. All right, we're still sticky here. All right, let's see what is going on. All right, so we have, this is sticky, great. Default, check this container, default. But honestly, guys, the best way to do this is separating, okay? We know that this desktop works, and we can see that it works, okay? If you see this, don't worry about it. It's not the same on the second desktop breakpoint. What I'm going to do, however, here is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to set this to don't display. I'm going to paste a new element here, make sure it's centered, top aligned, and I'm going to remove the container, and I'm going to build this out just like I built this out to begin with. So let me do that really quick and we'll be right back. And what I mean by that is taking everything out of the container, having this split into two parts, logo and buttons, and the Mario container here, and we're gonna set all this stuff to sticky. All right, let's go to preview. There we go. And very simply, I'm gonna set our Super Mario container to have an offset of 50. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. And let's continue. So like I said, what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna separate basically the two experiences. So we have our main desktop. If we preview, So everything is on the right here because, let's actually expand this here just a little bit. So we have 2 breakpoints. This is breakpoint 1. This is the original that we did. We need to now put the pipe in front of Mario again. So what we've done essentially is we have, let's go ahead and push this all the way up. We've separated and created 2 desktop experiences. One that is for larger breakpoints or for larger devices. We have the website basically show up as alternating text and image content. When the screen gets a little bit smaller, right? Let's go to preview again. So let's pull this out just a little bit. So we have alternating content, left, right, okay? Mario and his buttons going here. Again, we're at preview, so this is not the true website. When we publish, you'll see Mario is just the only thing that goes into the pipe, and that's about it. But when we pull this in, right, when we pull in for the next breakpoint, now we have content all on the right, and all we're going to do is move this content over to the left. Okay, just like what we did. And the reason it's not here anymore is because, remember, on the first desktop we did don't display for the element that is on the second desktop breakpoint. I'll show exactly what that means so you guys don't just have to look at my hands. All right, so we are now on the second breakpoint here. I am going to call, let's go to my layer so you guys can see this. So this is our button logo container, and this is our Mario container. And I'm gonna just call this desktop 1. And I'm also gonna call this desktop 1. I'm going to not display these here, so don't display. I'm gonna set this to don't display. Now we have a container here. This is the desktop 2 hero. So I'm gonna set this to display. And here we have all the content that we just made a little bit earlier for this breakpoint. And so we have all of our content to the right, we have our pipe to the left, and our content over here to the left as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and publish this. I'm gonna show you guys what this looks like on the true published website. So we have this breakpoint, left, right, boom. Okay, only Mario goes into the pipe. Now, if we pull this to be a little bit smaller, right? This is our second breakpoint here. We have some things that we need to change. Obviously, we have to get Mario to be at the bottom, which is super easy, but we have all of our content here as well. We probably want to space this out a little bit more, which is a pretty easy fix. And we also want to make sure that Mario, this content in the pipe are all aligned. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and set this container to height instead of auto. Remember, we want 100% of that height. We are going to remove the minimum height because we want it 100% of the viewport height. Minimum width, none. We keep it at max content. And then let's go ahead and see, we have 5.3% here. We could try 5.3% for margin here, but one of the things I want to try very simply is I'm going to go to V2 really quick. And I'm going to check in our second breakpoint here. So our margin here was 5.3. Let's go ahead and check what this is up top here. We have about 5%. So we already did the math here. It looked better at 5%. Let's see, let's try that. Let's go ahead and publish. And again, a lot of this is probably going to be, especially if you guys are following along with me, a lot of this stuff, if you decide to do different things, you're working on a different screen, sometimes the math is going to be a little bit different for you. But if you're working with percentages, which you should be alongside the same track as me as well in terms of how everything is looking. So that 100% has fixed Mario, perfect. And excellent. So he goes inside of the pipe. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I am actually going to move this content over just a tad more with our percentages. And I'm actually just going to go ahead and use my arrow keys on my keyboard. So I'm going to hold shift and just move this over to the left. We have now 7.4. Let's go ahead and publish. And this is kind of just, we're going back and forth, seeing what works best. Let's see how this is looking. All right, great. So he's in there. I'm going to move him over just a tad bit, maybe one more block, one more shift and push to the right. Let's go ahead and publish. Let's go back, refresh. Let's see one more time. Let's bring him down here. This looks a little bit better. Maybe I can push it one more pixel or one more by holding shift and basically moving things by increment of 10 pixels. Or actually, I don't know how much I'm I guess by an increment of almost 7 basis points of a percentage, or 0.7. I actually don't know, but let's see. We're just using our eyes, guys. But I think this should be good. There we go. So Mario looks like he's in the center. I could increase the size of Mario if I wanted to, because he is pretty tiny looking on this breakpoint. So I might click on him, go to his container here, and I might increase this width to maybe, let's play around with 40, see what that looks like. Publish, make this tiny, boom. Okay, Mario is a little bit of a decent size here. Excellent. Okay, so now what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna pull some of this content in just a little bit. I want it a little bit closer. There's all this space here, and I want to actually increase the space between each one of these sections. I love the amount of space between the release date in this section, but we also need some of the content here to be spaced out. And I think one thing I might do is Mario looks almost off skew or off center. If I take my mouse down here, right, it's not really, Mario's not in the center. So I might take him in his container. So we have this. I'm gonna move Mario in his container over, shift, move over just a little bit, like this. I'm gonna take these, and we're gonna up the margin just a bit more. Let's do 10% margin, maybe 15. Let's see what that looks like. Just pasting, 15, there we go. And I might do the same for this. And I actually might just use my alignment tools here. There we go. I still want it 100 offset from the top, or 100 margin. So 100, there we go. And I was able to just manually do that because Editor X is awesome and kind of gives us a little bit of a guidance here, right? Gives us some guides. And now I want to increase the size of these margins here, or excuse me, of these gaps, so that we have more space between each of the content pieces. So I'm going to select my section, this section gap, I'm going to add 100 pixels. I'm going to set this Bowser here. It looks like there's margin here that's not needed, so I'm going to set this to 0. Okay, everything else looks good. Let's go ahead and publish. Okay, so we know this breakpoint is fine. This was the original, or excuse me, this was desktop 1 breakpoint. Let's go to desktop 2. Okay, everything is to the left. Our content is to the right. I'm going to refresh this one more time. There we go. So this is a little bit closer. Now I think what I'm going to go ahead and do here too is this content I want a little bit lower. I literally want these two kind of to be in parallel with one another. So I am going to take a look at this. We have 95 margin from the top. I want to make sure everything adds up here. So with this is actually lower than this, which is interesting. I think what I want to do here is I'm going to try 120. Let's publish. But this is kind of like, this is the testing, guys. Whoops, just hit some paper. I'm essentially going to keep trying different numbers. Let's try 135. Publish. All right, it's pretty close. We're going to do 145 pixels. There you go. Publish. All right, there we go. So pretty much in alignment here. And I still want a little bit more space in between each content piece. So I think what I'm going to do here, because I like how much space is in between these two pieces, I am going to add about like 100 pixels of margin in between or on top of these containers on top of the gap. So let's go ahead and do that. And I hope one of the things that you guys are seeing with this as well is, yes, I've already built this, but there's a lot of different things that I have to keep into account too. I have to troubleshoot a lot of this, and I always have to go back and forth to make sure that I'm keeping into account the spacing. You know, do I have no ideas? Is what I want to build, or how I'm envisioning what I'm trying to build, is it actually working out? So I'm going to set all these to 100 pixels, just give it a little bit of margin on top. And I think this should be fine. Let's go ahead and publish this. There we go. Much more space. There we are. All right, that's our desktop breakpoint number 2. So now we can go ahead and go to tablet. All right, guys, so we just finished breakpoint for desktop 1 and 2. Up next, we're going to talk about how to get the tablet version of this website nice, done, and over with. We're basically going to take breakpoint 2 of the desktop and just make it into a tablet version. And then for mobile, we are going to basically just take everything and stack it. So let's hop into the tablet version right now. All right, so next we've finished desktop version 2. So now we can go over to our tablet here. And what we're going to go ahead and do is we are going to make sure we are going into our layers. We have desktop hero or desktop 2 hero. Perfect. And we are going to make sure that everything morphs to the way we want it. So what we did over here in desktop 2 is we made this container max content, minimum width. We don't really need that, to none essentially. So we're going to do the same thing over here. And I guess it just cascaded. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take this container, no minimum width, but we are going to make sure that this is set to max content for us. And all we are going to do here is set all of this content here is we are going to set this to a new size. So I'm going to go over to, I'm going to close out our websites here, go back to our V1 of this, go back to our tablet version, and let's see the sizing of all of this. So our outermost container or folder is set to max content, which is fine. Our images are set to 200, and our text containers are set to 305. So let's go ahead and make those changes. Width of our images, 200 pixels. No minimum width, set that to none. Our text outermost container is set to 305. Let's go ahead and set this to 305 pixels as well. There we go. Minimum width, none, none, and let's make sure that we set this stuff to 100%. For some reason, there we go. I'm gonna set the text to all 100%, so it fits it should fit into the 300 pixel container here. But let's see, for some reason it doesn't look like it's doing it. We have max content. Let's check the outermost container, 305. Here we go, that's what it is. 100%. There we go. Okay, so basically that bottom text, because it was 405, it was overriding everything and not making everything kind of a wrap. Okay, so to kind of explain, we set the outermost container to width 305, but because this paragraph was set to 436, it basically was like, nah, don't care that you're set to 305. We're actually going to go larger than that. But as soon as I set this to 100%, everything inside of this container adheres to the rule of being 100% of the 305 pixel width we've set for our outermost container here. So now for the text, now the outermost container that we have encompassing everything, image and text, we now want to set to max content. This minimum width we no longer need. And we're just going to do this to all of the other rows. And when we're done with that, we'll be right back. And perfect. So every image now is 200 pixels. All of our text main containers is set to 305 width, and our main container that's holding both our image and text is set to max content, basically adhering to our text width, which is 305. And all of the text within that text container is set to 100%. All right, from here, we're going to go ahead and we're basically going to add some margin to this. Okay, so we're going to go here. And for context, we're going to actually go towards our V1 just to see how much margin we have on the right. So we have, again, 5.7%. So we're going to go ahead and do that. All of our pieces here, we're going to do 5.7%. Container, margin 5.7%. 5.7%. And for this, we are going to just pull this in just like this so it's aligned. There we go. And let's go ahead and publish. So remember what we just saw here: desktop version 1, desktop version 2. Easy stuff. We're gonna pull this in even more. Everything should resize. Here we go. Now it looks like we have some work to do. Let's refresh this one more time to see if it actually changes anything. Let's try to make this a little bit smaller, see what happens. Okay, so it looks like this is changing, but this stuff is not. Let's actually go ahead and inspect this and see what's going on. So it looks like this is way bigger than I would like. Let's go to console or elements. I'm gonna scroll all the way down here. So it looks like it's almost 400 by 400, which is not what we want. Let's go ahead and take a peek at what is going on here, because these are set to literally 200 width. So I'm gonna go ahead and publish again. Let's see what's going on. There we go. Okay, so now we should have this as a breakpoint, and what we can do, right? We can make sure that when this stuff crosses right about here, we actually make it so that the breakpoint actually changes, because we never want crossing content like this, and I'll show you guys how to do that. So we have this as, and another thing we want to actually make sure of, so as you guys see this, the tunnel actually is moving. Mario is not. We want to make sure that does not happen as well, and we'll fix that. So we are going to, let's go to our V1. I want to make sure, I'm going to just stick this to the bottom, docked. And I think I'm going to do this to our other version here as well. I only want it docked to the bottom so it does not move. And let's go ahead and do that to this version as well. Dock only to the bottom. That way, if it's docked to the left, basically our browser is like, hey, please stay this close to this edge. And we don't want that. We just want to stick it to the bottom. Okay. Okay, so it's resizing nicely. Let's go ahead and preview or publish. All right, we already know this breakpoint is good. Let's go here. This breakpoint is also good. Let's just double check to see if our tunnel is moving. Our tunnel does move, or our pipe does move. We want to make sure that that doesn't. Let's go to, I want to see this. Let's go to our first version. So our pipe, it only moves like that. So we're going to need to fix that. Let's move the margin. Okay, let's try this. I wonder if I just do it like this, what happens? View site. Aha, okay. So we do need him docked to the bottom. So let's go ahead and fix that again. Dock to the bottom. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. All right, let's see if we can. I wonder if we just do, if we dock it to the top, if that also is helpful. All right, let's also do, so I think we are good here, but what we need to do is when this stuff starts to get pushed over, so I'm actually going to pull the, instead of 10 or 15, I'm going to set this stuff to 10% over. Let's go ahead and publish. All right, we need to fix our pipe now. The only reason it looks like that is because we have it docked to the top. So we're going to reduce that, publish. All right, there we go. Let's start to pull this in. Okay, that's better, but I want to go to mobile as soon as we get here, where it's basically almost a crossover. So to do that, I am going to go to, at first I am just going to start pushing this in, just like this. Or let's go to preview first. And I'm just going to start pushing this content in, and I'm going to find the pixel size, maybe around here. So this is about we'll do 1190. So we'll edit out of here. We're gonna go to tablet and we're gonna set the width to 1190, the top here. 1190, perfect. So now what this will do is when I publish, there we go. So now the stuff will not even cross, okay? I gotta fix our pipe here, but that's fine. But now we've set it to, hey, when it gets to 100 or the 1190 pixels, please just immediately go to the tablet breakpoint, which is this. And from there on to mobile, it will basically be this breakpoint, which is perfect. And from here, we just honestly need to fix our pipe. So let's go ahead and do that. Image. Let's set the height to auto, proportionally scale. Let's go ahead and set this reset image scale. Drop this to the bottom. I'm gonna take Mario, this container, move him over just a little bit, go to preview, just see where he is in alignment in the tablet. Here we go. So I am going to move this whole thing, the logo, Mario, and the button. I'm gonna move it over by a tad. So holding shift, using my arrow keys, publish. All right, there we go. I'm gonna move him over just a tad bit more. But this is what it necessarily takes, guys. It's just using your eyeballs, seeing what works, what doesn't work, publishing, seeing how it works out, and going from there. All right, I'm pushing him over one more. Shift, arrow key to the right, publish. There we go, perfect. All right, so this is mobile. We will deal with that in a little bit. So this is looking good. This is desktop 2. This is desktop 1. Let's pull this down. All right. I do want to increase the size of the logo here just a little bit. Now let's start working on, let's do 350px. Publish. But essentially from here on, guys, just try to finagle what size works for you and your vision. So I'm gonna go ahead and finagle some of the size, the widths of some things, and I will be right back. All right, so some of the things that I have done here is essentially a big thing that could also help is selecting the pipe and also your main container up here and using your align tools to basically center them. So I've done that, and basically what we've gotten here is a pretty good match. Now Mario is a little tad big and we have a little bit of his hat poking through. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is just select Mario. I am going to take him and I am gonna give him about a -4 pixels from the bottom here, just pulling him down just a little bit. I'm gonna publish this. So now he's all the way in there. I could continue finagling to make sure that these two assets basically sit at the same size, just like we did with the other breakpoints here. So boom, right? When I scroll all the way down, these are at the same height. We can continue to do the same thing. So let's go ahead and try. And all I'm going to be doing, I also want to make sure that the sizing of this pipe does not occur. And to do that, let's go ahead and see, double check. Yeah, we do not want the pipe to actually, moving of the pipe, totally fine, but we don't want it to actually change size on us. All right, so we have a percentage. We actually want to set this to a pixel size, okay, which works for us. We will keep that pipe at the same size. And I'm going to do this basically for all of the breakpoints here. Height, we're going to set this to auto. We're going to do that also for our desktop here instead of width. Percentage, we're going to set this to a particular width. Height, auto, perfect. Go ahead and publish this. All right, got to fix this. All right, that works perfectly. This is our desktop 2, so let's go ahead and fix that. It looks like it's cut off a little bit, so all I'm gonna go ahead and do is reset image here. There we go. Keep it at the bottom. Dock to the, dock to the bottom. 0 bottom margin. Margin left is fine. Let's go ahead and publish that. There we are. Looks good. Size, close, boom. We're gonna move this over just a little bit so that we can center this stuff. So let's go to our tablet. Move this stuff over by, set this to 0. 5.7. Set this to 0. Bottom. Left. Do about 5.7% here. Let's publish. But one thing you might notice is there's a lot of back and forth here, and this is just something that you can't not fare away from when it comes to web development. Okay, so we have, it looks like we have a little bit of a percentage thing happening here, and I think this is because it's mobile, which we haven't touched yet. It goes from here. As soon as we try to pass, it goes to the mobile breakpoint, which we will fix. But we're looking good. This stays exactly where it should be. It doesn't move. All this content is looking good. So let's go ahead and move into the mobile breakpoint and start messing around with that there, and let's finish out. All right, guys, so what we've done so far is we have done the desktop version 1, desktop breakpoint 2. We have done the tablet version. Let's go ahead and take and recap what we have done there. And then now we are going to finish out the mobile version, which should be pretty straightforward. We're going to stack everything and it's going to be easy peasy. So let's dive in. We're going to take one last look at our tablet breakpoint and let's have a look. So we have our tablet breakpoint here. Let's go ahead and publish. So our tablet breakpoint here, if we really wanted to, we can move this pipe just a little bit over to the left. Maybe we can do that just really quick. Just take that here, just one shift right arrow to on my keyboard, visit the site, and actually I was looking at V2. We went to edit V1 here. Let's go to my tablet here. Boom, publish. Let's go to our tablet version. Here we go. And everything is nice and centered. To the left, our pipe does not move, which is excellent. All our content to the right is perfect. If you guys really wanted to, you can move it a little bit more so it is centered. But I decided to keep everything to the left so that when we actually start to cross right about here, when we get into the mobile territory, everything will start to stack. Because right here, we're in, let's go here. So this is breakpoint 1, breakpoint 2, breakpoint 3, which is tablet, and now we're going to create breakpoint 4, which is mobile. So let's dive into that. All right, guys, we are about to jump into the mobile version of this website. Thank you so much for watching so far. If you have any questions, always feel free to ask me in our Discord. And with that said, let's hop into mobile and make some fancy things.